Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have Shannon Wilburn, the CEO and co-founder of Just Between Friends. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. For those of our listeners who don't know you and who don't know Just Between Friends, could you tell them a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. That's a great place to start because we do have a very unique concept. So our concept is basically a pop-up marketplace for families to purchase gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment. So do you have any children?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So anytime I'm talking to people who don't have kids, I like to throw in there how expensive it is when you do have children. You have to buy all the baby equipment, all the stuff that you need or feel like you need, at least the latest and greatest gadgets and toys that make your life easier raising a child. And all that stuff can get really expensive really quickly. Not to mention toys and even clothes and shoes. I mean, baby shoes sometimes are as expensive as adult shoes. It's crazy. And so we provide a way for families to recoup some of the investment that they put into those items by hosting events, sales around the country. And we're in 160 markets right now in 32 states. And our franchise owners they basically do a pop-up sale and set it up like a department store. And we have drop-off days at the beginning where families in the community drop off their items that are tagged at home. And we inspect it, goes through a recall process where we don't have anything that's unsafe for families. Then we host the sale where people from the marketplace can come in and purchase items at discounted prices. So 50 to 90% off retail, which always makes people happy. They're getting great deals. And our sales last anywhere from 3 to 7 days, depending on the market and depending on how much participation we have from the community. And once it's over, everything gets split up into the consignor numbers. So can go back to the family if they so choose, if they want their unsold items. Or we do this real cool thing where we donate to local nonprofits. So items that families choose to donate, then those unsold items go to the local nonprofits. So that's it. And we do it 2 times a year is our contracted time, but some of our franchises choose to do it 3 or 4 times a year.
Wow, that's really cool. I love the just extending the longevity and the use of items.
Yeah, it's a very sustainable way to kind of clothe your children because that stuff gets 6 months worth of use. So you have to clothe your children. Here's a newsflash since you don't have kids yet. Every 6 months they have to have a new wardrobe, and it can get pricey.
I can imagine. So Shannon, how did you first come up with this idea?
So I hate to do this to you, but take you all the way back till I was 12 years old. This is part of my story. My dad was he was an up and coming CFO making 6 figures in the early 80s. I was 12 years old and had a twin sister, and he got sick. He went from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair in the span of 6 weeks. And we went from brand new house around an atrium to brand new cars in the driveway to moving to a rental house, my dad going on disability, and my mom going to work. And so our life changed in a significant manner when it came to our financial side. And my dad sat my twin sister and I down and said, here is your clothing budget for the year. This is what you can spend. You can spend it all in January, or you can make it last till December. But don't come to me and say you want more after this money is gone, because it's gone. And so we learned at that point how to make our dollar stretch by shopping consignment. And that's where I learned about consignment and how you could still get great items that had lots of use in them, even for a teenage girl. And so just growing up, my husband, I ended up marrying a pastor, which is not a vow of poverty, but almost. And at the time I so got married, shopped consignment for myself, had children, started shopping consignment for them. And my mom actually came up with the idea and said, she told me she had seen an event happening, a big sale, like in a church in Fort Worth. And she said, you need to start this up in Tulsa, which is where I live. And I was wanting to stay home with my kids, so looking for additional income. My elementary education degree, I had stopped teaching to stay home with my kids and was just looking for added revenue. And so I went to a friend from my church and said, what do you think about this idea? And she was the biggest bargain hunter that I knew, Daven Tackett, like dumpster diving and garage sales every Saturday. And I mean, just all kinds of ways to stretch a dollar. And she said, great, can I do it with you? And we started in my living room in 1997, convinced 17 people from our church to bring us their gently used children's and maternity clothes, and had that event in my living room. We sold $2,000 worth of merchandise. And I think I made $150 and she made $150. Someone tried to buy my couch. It was we didn't want it to be a garage sale, but so then we, from there, went to a 3-car garage. Then we went to a local church. Then we went to the Tulsa Fairgrounds, which is still where the Tulsa sale actually happens now. And so that's kind of the story. We started franchising in 2004, started selling franchises, and I think, Jordan, there's a need for making money and saving money. People know that there's life left in those items. And so, so that's kind of how we started.
What made you first want to franchise in 04?
My elementary education degree and my business partner, Devin's journalism degree, it did not really lend itself to knowing anything about business. So we were just kind of, making our way and figuring it out, problem solving around stuff. Well, we had friends and family around the country that decided they saw what we were doing here in Tulsa, and it looked like something they could do, looked appealing to them. And so they would reach out to us and say, hey, we want to start this where we are. And we would say, sure, use the name Just Between Friends. Of course, not knowing that that's not what you're supposed to do. Here's the first tip: get a trademark. And don't let people use your name. But we didn't know any better. And so that's kind of how we did it. And our friends and family, we probably started helping someone in Florida first, then Colorado, California, and Texas. So before we knew it, in a span of 3 years, we had 10 people that we had helped kind of bring them along. And they were helping us as well, proving the concept. I had no idea that was even a term. And, but now I know, of course, that's what they were doing, and helping solidify that this type of concept could work in different areas. But it was a lot of work. I had another full-time job. I had 2 kids in elementary school. I was a youth pastor's wife and just had a lot going on. So I was complaining to someone that I had too much going on. And I was helping answer lots of questions for people that were wanting to do what I was doing. And it was overwhelming. And he said, well, Shannon, is your event here in Tulsa profitable? And I said, yeah. He said, well, are the events in California, Colorado, Florida, and Texas profitable? I said, well, I would guess so, because I don't think they would continue doing it if they weren't. And he said, well, you should franchise. And I said, what's franchising? And he made it sound so easy. He said, you just get an attorney. He's going to put a contract together. You're going to think about all the things you do in your day in, day out, put an operations manual together, write it down, and then it's a business in a box and you sell that. He didn't say anything about supporting these new businesses. And but I left his office and drove straight to Barnes and Noble and bought the book Franchising for Dummies.
Mhm.
Read that, and my business partner and I prayed about it and decided that we were gonna. That's a very quick story of actually how it was probably several months of making the decision,
Mhm.
but we decided, okay, we're gonna try this. And so we went to those 10 people that we had helped get started and had used the name Just Between Friends and said, hey, we're gonna franchise. We would love for you to be our first franchise owners. And all but 2 of them said yes. So maybe it was 12 and we started with 10.
Mhm.
And yeah, so they didn't have to pay a franchise fee or anything like that because they had helped prove the concept. And it was
Mhm.
really great from a validation standpoint. Again, I didn't even know what validation was in the franchise development process.
Mhm.
But when we had people interested, it wasn't just myself and Devin that they were talking to. We did a lot of that. We did our own franchise development when we started. And it was great to be able to have someone else to pass them along to say, hey, check with Holly, check with Gail, check with Laura, see
Mhm.
if this works well for them. So that's why we started franchising. It was really that it was overwhelming. I had no idea the amount of work that it would take to franchise. And so when, those of us who've been in the franchising space for quite some time,
Mhm.
um, it's not uncommon to have people say, hey, Shannon, I want to franchise my business. Can I make a lunch with you? Can we sit down and have coffee? Can we have a phone call? And I'm always happy to do that. And I usually try to talk them out of franchising because it's a lot of work. And you
Mhm.
have to
Mhm.
go into it knowing that it's going to be a lot of work and that your core responsibility is no longer running the concept that you're franchising. Your
Mhm.
core responsibility now is franchising, which means supporting with technology, marketing, sales, legal, compliance, legislative, technology, all of that stuff. And it can be overwhelming and very costly. And I did not know that. I thought I knew what it was because I had read the books, but I wasn't necessarily prepared from a financial standpoint. So there we had some challenges financially. Multiple times we've had challenges financially because we bootstrapped it. So
Mhm.
grew very slowly, didn't go get investors. I know that that's another way to do it, which a lot of people take that. I would say if you have that ability that's a good way to do it.
Mhm. Very cool. I love that slow organic growth that you've taken. So you alluded to this before and touched on it, but one question I always like to ask is if you were to impart one piece of advice to someone just starting off as a franchisor, what would it be?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
I've got 2 pieces of advice that
Okay.
I would love to share if you'll allow me.
Please do.
The first is if you're not a part of the International Franchise Association, that I would 100% find the money to do that. They, especially for emerging brands, the IFA knows that they don't have a lot of capital, and so they give discounted pricing. So I think it's under $3,000 for a 2-year membership, and that gets you to the annual convention. It gets one person, I think, to the annual convention. So it's very, very when you look at all the networking and all the education, all of that, I mean, that is first and foremost, become a member of the IFA and go to some of the events. If not, participate in the free webinars that they do on Wednesdays. And it is just such valuable gold information. And you will meet so many people that want, that's one really cool thing about franchising is people want to help people. And I don't know if this is true in any other industry, but you can even have competitors in the same room who are helping one another. And I don't know of many industries where that happens. And so we have had a great experience going to the International Franchise Association events and all the other associated things that happen within franchising that you hear about if you go to those events. So there is a conference called the Springboard Conference that Brad Fishman and Lane Fisher put on in September every year. It just happened. It was a virtual meeting in September this year, but usually it's in Philadelphia. It's for emerging brands. And the IFA also puts on an emerging franchisor conference, usually in November is when that one happens. So that's my first piece of advice, is to get involved in IFA. You will meet so many people who will just help you. And what I found was I didn't even know about IFA until we had been franchising for 4 years. And I wasted so much time, so much money, that I could have just picked up the phone and called someone and say, how would you handle this? And they would have boom, 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 because I don't really feel like there's that many new problems in franchising. Lots of this is, how do you deal with franchise owners? How do you help them succeed? Where should you put your focus and your strategy first? And there are specific educational opportunities within IFA for emerging brands, 0 to 10, 10 to 50 units, 50 to 100 units. And they so good, just really good information. So that's my first piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would say we didn't do this until 2017, but we implemented an advisory board. And so I'm 100% owner in the company at the moment. And so we don't have a board of directors with fiduciary responsibility. But I did want to put in place an advisory board. So our advisory board is made up of 4 people. We meet quarterly over the phone and 1 time per year in person, just to kind of, if you can do a meeting over the phone or over video rather than getting on a plane and going somewhere, and you save the money, you save the time, and you still get things accomplished. I think that's awesome. I know we're very much because of COVID, we're doing that a lot more these days, but it was more a financial decision on my part to do that. 3 out of 4 quarters was to meet over video or over the phone. But it's for people in franchising that I have looked up to from a mentoring perspective, that I chose based on the needs in my own system. So we didn't have a CFO at the time. We didn't have anyone who was providing strategy for technology. So those were 2, and those were 2 areas where I recognized that we needed help. And so so I looked for people within the industry who might be willing to give me a few hours a year of mentorship and advice. And it has been a game changer for us in just elevating our brand, helping us through the decision-making process as a leadership team. They give lots of advice, and because they don't have fiduciary responsibility, and they're not a franchisee, they can kind of give that outside perspective of maybe what is happening in the industry, problem solving around challenges that we've seen. And again, if you don't have an advisory board, I would suggest putting one together. And we pay them for actual meetings, but honestly, Jordan, I can pick up the phone and call any one of them today, and they would take my phone call and just say, hey, I need 20 minutes, help me through this challenge. And it's been a big confidence boost for us as a system, and gives us credibility with our franchise owners. So there's my advice.
I love it. I love it, Shannon. So tell me a bit more about that. What can franchisors do to put together an advisory board that really supports them and elevates them to that next level?
So I will tell you what I did, and I don't know anyone else who has done it a different way. So I reached out to John Francis. So John is a gentleman that has been in the industry since infancy. I think he's in his 50s now, but his mom and dad both were in franchising when he was born and raised in a brand, a haircutting brand. And they had lots of locations. And then his dad passed away after getting Entrepreneur of the Year from IFA. His dad passed away. His mom took over the company, took it public. They at one point had over 1,000 locations. So he grew up around that, working in that. And so he has worked as a franchisor and then went on to be a franchisee in a couple of different brands. And so he has the franchisee perspective and the franchisor perspective. And what he does right now is helps people put advisory boards together. So he knows a lot of people. So it was really helpful. Thankfully I had been in IFA for 10 years. And so I knew people myself that I had networked with that I thought they're very successful in franchise development. And I want that success in awarding franchises. So I'm going to see if they would be willing to, meet with me a few times a year to do a brain dump of just their brilliance. And, it is, when you ask someone to mentor you, it can feel really like a lot of pressure. And so we tried to, when we met, whenever I put my list together of the areas I needed people, and then we started kind of looking within the industry of someone who could fill those spots. So not everyone can fill a technology seat. I just needed some good information, some golden nuggets from a technology perspective. So we started looking for someone who might could fill that seat. So I think you have to look specifically about the needs in your own team, your leadership team, yourself, and figure out where your gaps are and start there. Um, that would be my first focus. And we would reach out to them, and I would tell them what I was doing, and if they would be willing to let me have a conversation with them about it to see if it was something that they are interested in. And not everyone's interested. You will probably get a no or two or three or four, no, thank you. And I would tell them that it's not a life sentence. You're not signing on for, 50 years with me, that I could change my mind tomorrow and replace that seat based on our needs, and that they can leave at any time as well. So you're not tied to anything. And I think, a lot of people, they just like to help if they have the capacity time wise to do it. So yeah, so that's kind of how we did it. Our very first meeting was an in-person meeting, so I could see the whites of their eyes, and it was a 5-hour meeting where I left crying. So it was like, I knew we had issues, but they pointed out, these are bigger issues maybe than you think, Shannon. And of course they were kind. It was just, I think I was excited that I now had people to help me problem solve around some of the issues that we had been having. And they've helped us tremendously. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I think our franchisees really like it too, because they know that we have outside perspective. I feel like that's good. I feel like it's really good to kind of, you can kind of have blinders on sometimes, of maybe what you should or shouldn't do. And it's good to have some outside perspective.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love those insights, Shannon.
Yeah.
So we are coming up on our time,
Yes.
and the way I like to end every episode is with something that I call the lightning round. So it's
Okay.
just some fast-paced questions. Don't worry,
Okay.
no curveballs coming at you. So
Okay.
are
Got
you
it.
ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Fantastic. Okay, so first question is, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
Oh gosh. Probably Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's our communication tool for our franchisees. And yeah, I would say definitely Facebook.
Awesome. So second question is, what is your favorite book?
Oh, I got a lot. And I've got one right here. That's a good question. So if you haven't read this book, The
Ooh.
Go-Giver,
Oh,
it's
what?
it
What's
is
it about?
amazing. It's about giving back. And I hate to spoil it for you. It's really good. You need to read it, and it's really hard to explain, but it will make you want to be a better business person, be a better business owner, not for yourself, but for others. And then there's this one. I bet you get a lot. Traction.
Mhm.
Okay. We have not done this yet, but
Okay.
we have started some of the principles. So I would say we're doing ish. It was kind of on our plan to start next year. I don't know if that's going to happen because of COVID and trying to kind of figure out what's going on, because COVID hit us really hard, like a lot
Mhm.
of us. So
Awesome.
yeah.
So who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
Oh gosh, I have a lot. Melanie Bergeron with Two Men in a Truck. I just think from a female perspective, it's good. And she's also a Christian, and I'm a Christian, and doesn't hide her faith in her business. So that's yeah, she would probably be the one that I think of right now. And then my advisory board members are amazing.
Awesome. And last question, Shannon, I promise.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you and your company?
So I'm on LinkedIn, also Facebook. But I think LinkedIn professionally. We also have a YouTube channel. I do some podcasts like this. They could probably find me on some podcasts with similar information here. So yeah. So our website is jbfsale.com.
Awesome. Shannon, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. You completely blew my mind with all of this information. So thank you
Jordan,
so much.
thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the ask.
Of course, anytime.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.